In 43 years on Earth, he had never, not once, successfully lit a firework. Not a sparkler, not a bottle rocket, not even one of those polite little fountains that hiss like an angry soda. And tonight, beneath the broad summer sky on the night of the annual Riverside Community Firework Extravaganza, he was determined to rewrite history. "This year will be different," he muttered, adjusting his safety goggles for the 7th time. They fogged instantly, either from nervous breathing or from the fact that he'd bought them from a discount bin that read pool accessories, possibly defective, which felt like a sentence you only understood after tragedy. From the neighboring yard, Mrs. Chen peered over the fence with the calm, collected expression of someone watching a nature documentary about a particularly incompetent gazelle. "Gerald, dear," she said, "do you remember what happened last year?" Gerald remembered. The fire department had been very polite about it, all things considered. "That was a fluke," he insisted, clutching his carefully organized box of fireworks like it was a sacred text. Every item had a color-coded sticky note. Green, probably safe. Yellow, light from a distance. Red, ask someone else. And this morning, in a moment of honesty so raw it bordered on spiritual, he'd added a 4th category. Purple. Why did I buy this? In the purple pile sat a Roman candle the size of a small child, radiating the kind of confidence usually reserved for machinery without safety guards. The park was already filling. Families laying blankets, kids weaving through legs, thermoses coming out like ceremonial objects. Gerald had chosen his position strategically, far enough from the crowd to minimize casualties, close enough to the pond to provide what he considered a natural fire suppression system. He'd thought of everything, except apparently, the lighter. He flicked it once, twice. Nothing. A hollow click. A mocking silence. "No problem," he told himself, patting pockets with brisk optimism. "I brought matches. I'm sure I brought matches." He had not brought matches. What he had brought was his phone, which buzzed with a text from his daughter. "Dad, please tell me you're not doing the firework thing again." Another message arrived immediately, like a follow-up punchline from the universe. "Mom says if you set anything on fire, she's keeping the dog." Gerald's stomach tightened. Gerald loved that dog. A shadow fell over his setup. He looked up, into the towering frame of Marcus, his gym trainer, who had the sort of posture that made even standing still look like a workout. Marcus wore the facial expression he usually reserved for watching someone attempt a deadlift with their spine shaped like a question mark. "Bro," Marcus said, which was how he started every sentence. "Bro, you need help?" "I've got this completely under control," Gerald said, immediately beginning an increasingly frantic search for the lighter he could have sworn he'd put in his left pocket, except it had apparently migrated to a dimension unknown to physics. Marcus crouched, muscles rippling in a way that seemed deeply unnecessary for the simple act of bending his knees. "Remember the 3 principles, bro? Stability, control, and don't be a hero." He narrowed his eyes at Gerald's arrangement. "You're being a hero right now." Before Gerald could argue that he was merely being a responsible citizen, a voice cut across the park like an alarm bell. "Is that Gerald Pemberton?" Gerald's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. Everyone within 5 miles knew that voice. Brenda Hofstetter, president of the Neighborhood Watch, keeper of grudges, the only person who had ever successfully filed a noise complaint against a sunset. She marched toward them like a well-dressed battleship, sensible shoes crushing dandelions with prejudice. "You," she announced, arriving as if the air itself owed her an apology, "are not lighting fireworks unsupervised after last year's incident." "It was hardly an incident," Gerald protested. "The mayor's toupee was mostly recoverable." Brenda's eyes sharpened. It landed in the punch bowl, which technically made it a fashion disaster, Gerald said, grasping for logic the way a drowning man grasps for driftwood. "Not a fire hazard." Mrs. Chen's head popped up again over the fence, now accompanied by her husband. They had popcorn. This was not concern. This was entertainment. Brenda planted herself between Gerald and the fireworks like a disapproving Berlin Wall. I'm confiscating these until someone responsible can. I'll supervise him, a voice called out. A teenager Gerald had never seen before skateboarded into the scene with the confidence of someone who had never experienced consequences. A name tag clung to his shirt like an accusation. Derek, volunteer. He was, perhaps generously, 17. Brenda's eyebrows attempted to achieve orbit. You? Yeah, Derek said, nodding like this was all perfectly normal. I did the online fire safety course. Got a certificate and everything. He held up his phone. On the screen was what was clearly a photoshopped diploma. The Comic Sans should have been the giveaway. Brenda looked at Derek, looked at Gerald, looked at the gathering crowd, now watching with the attentive delight of Romans awaiting gladiatorial combat. Fine, she said, and each letter landed like a separate stab. But I'm watching. All of you. She retreated to a nearby bench, produced a folding chair that seemed to materialize from nowhere, and sat with the posture of judgment itself. Marcus clapped Gerald on the shoulder, nearly dislocating it. You got this, bro, Marcus said warmly, as if sending someone into battle. Remember, light the fuse, back away, don't be a hero. I'm just lighting fireworks, not defusing a bomb, Gerald muttered. Marcus said. With your track record, bro. Same thing. Derek, meanwhile, had already produced a lighter. A working lighter. Which seemed unfair, like discovering someone else had brought competence. He examined Gerald's collection with the casual authority of a teenager about to make a terrible decision. Okay, old dude, Derek said. What are we starting with? Gerald pointed to a modest fountain firework. Green labeled virtually foolproof. The sort of firework designed for people who feared fireworks. Derek nodded once, then, with the elegant cruelty of fate, reached past it and grabbed the purple labeled Roman candle. No, Gerald said quickly. That's the, why did I buy this category? Exactly, Derek grinned. Go big or go home, bro. And somehow, he said bro, like Marcus, as if the word had infected him on contact. The crowd thickened. Someone set up a speaker and patriotic music poured into the air, swelling the moment into something ceremonial and deeply ill-advised. Mrs. Chen's husband upgraded from popcorn to a full charcuterie board. This was happening. Derek carried the Roman candle into the center of Gerald's carefully arranged safety zone, which suddenly felt less like a plan and more like a suggestion. Gerald's phone buzzed again. His daughter was now sending prayer emojis. On 3, Derek announced, lighter poised like a conductor's baton. 1. Gerald gripped his knees so hard he could feel his bones complaining. 2. Brenda leaned forward in her chair, eyes bright with the thrill of being right in advance. 3. Derek lit the fuse. For one beautiful moment, everything was perfect. The fuse sparkled. The crowd inhaled as one. Even the universe seemed to pause, as if acknowledging this rare sight. Gerald Pemberton on the edge of success. Then the Roman candle tipped over. Not gently, not politely. It tipped with intention, directly toward the box containing all of Gerald's remaining fireworks. Time slowed into a dreadful, cinematic syrup. Marcus lunged forward, all instinct and muscle. Derek stumbled backward, suddenly remembering mortality. Mrs. Chen dropped her Chardonnay like an offering to the gods of chaos. Brenda rose from her chair like a phoenix of disapproval. And Gerald Pemberton, who had never successfully completed a firework display in his entire life, found himself staring into the moment of truth. The fuse sputtered toward the box. The first Roman candle shot sparked to life.